In this era, still being a middle school graduate, it's such an outdated act that tarnishes the pride of our family. As the wife of my proud son, you should really reconsider this attitude.
I was invited to my glamorous sister-in-law's wedding party along with my husband. However, my mother-in-law named Deborah, who places a great deal of importance on educational background, looked down on me and criticized me with a cold gaze because of my middle school education.
This place is not suitable for you. Don't waste time and go home immediately.
She brutally tore off the corsage that I had carefully chosen to go with my dress, and rudely threw it on the floor. Understood. Following Deborah's strict instructions, I left the scene. However, this incident would mark the beginning of a great turmoil and commotion within my husband's family. My name is Linda. I am now 28 years old, happily married to my loving husband. We both work and live our daily lives together. I have strong values, and based on them, I chose not to pursue high school. On official documents, my education level is listed as a middle school graduate. However, I have overcome various experiences and past events, and now work at a major foreign company. Through a mutual friend at work, I met my husband, John, and eventually, we got married. Within John's family, following the strong academic elitism of the mother, every family member boasts a very high level of education. However, John and his sister, Sarah, themselves do not flaunt their educational background, nor do they judge people solely based on their education. Our relationship with them is very good. We have strong bonds as a married couple and also with Sarah. The only issue is my relationship with his mother, Deborah. There are deep differences in our mindsets and values. Therefore, I find it hard to believe that a day will come when we truly understand each other. Despite this, John is an important presence in my life, and I want to spend my lifetime with him. I am grateful to Deborah as the person who brought him into this world, and I hope to build a good relationship with her without offending her. However, she seems to have a slightly different attitude towards me. If she doesn't like me, I wish she would just act as if I don't exist, but that seems difficult for her. On the contrary, she sometimes behaves in a way that brings up topics I am not familiar with or targets my weaknesses. The other day, we received an invitation from John's family and attended a dinner as a couple. Although the intention was to welcome both John and me, the meal served to me was completely different from the rest of the family.
For a middle school graduate like you, a simple bowl of soup and a dish is more than enough. It's surprising to see a middle school graduate in this era. You're like a woman from a time when education wasn't necessary.
In front of me, there were looking like broth soup but tasteless hot water and some leaves raw and uncooked, which I had never seen before.
I went out of my way to use broth for you, so you should be grateful. Besides, wild leaves should be enough, right?
Observing the situation, John spoke up.
This is an unexpected surprise. Are you perhaps planning to first surprise and then entertain us?
He responded humorously. I was well aware that John had always noticed Deborah's cold attitude towards me. That morning, just before we left the house, he looked me in the eyes and promised in a low voice.
No matter what happens, I will always be on your side.
After a while, Sarah made her entrance.
I'm sorry for being late today. I had a little errand to run.
She apologized generously as started spreading out the bag she had brought on the table.
Look, isn't the deli food from this store delicious looking? It's a luxury item that costs like $100 per pound. As your sister-in-law, I thought it would be nice to enjoy a meal together with you. Of course, Mom, please try some too.
In this moment, I never thought that the true meaning of John's words, "I will always be on your side," would manifest in this way. Deborah, seeing me smiling brightly, had an indescribable expression on her face. However, as expected, she quickly began to provoke me.
By the way, our nephew just got accepted into a very prestigious private kindergarten. I wonder if you, a middle school graduate, can comprehend its importance. This school is attractive because it offers an integrated education from kindergarten to university. Furthermore, it has affiliations with top-level schools overseas and has produced numerous famous scholars and politicians from its university. This story might be a bit interesting for you.
Deborah's words indirectly placed expectations and pressure on me. Her flow of words was so smooth that it seemed like she had practiced it many times, and she kept talking in a one-sided manner. When she finally paused, she directed a provocative gaze at me and said,
"Now, what do you think?"
Utilizing her knowledge of my educational background, she threw a question at me, aiming for the moment when I wouldn't be able to answer immediately, and subtly demeaning me with the fact that I am a middle school graduate. She even continued to say that people like me are bad for society. My father-in-law, Stephen, is fundamentally gentle, and even when Deborah makes extreme remarks, he endures quietly without saying anything. His attitude seemed as if he couldn't contradict Deborah's words. On the other hand, Sarah wasn't paying attention to her words and was focused on what interested her. Occasionally, she would turn to me and say,
Try this, it's delicious.
and then she would watch my reaction with enjoyment. As a result, I hardly grasped what Deborah was actually saying. John continued to actively offer wine to Deborah, probably in hopes that she would get drunk quickly and stop talking. In a moment of opportunity, John whispered in my ear,
Hang in there. It's just a little bit longer.
and encouraged me. Every time we visit his family, I get mentally and physically exhausted, but I don't want to worry John or Deborah, so I always respond lightly. I'm fine, I'm not that sensitive. Deborah's personality was incredibly strong, and she appeared to firmly believe that her beliefs and thoughts were absolutely right. Both John and Sarah were well aware of Deborah's personality and behavior. Therefore, they judged that openly opposing her would only worsen the situation. In such situations, the wisest response was to endure and subtly ignore her words. However, each time I couldn't help but ask myself, how long could I really continue to endure Deborah's blatant attitude and words? The reason was that Deborah's harassment extended beyond my in-laws' house and reached our own home. Without any notice, she suddenly showed up at our house and said,
This is something our son loves. It's too good for a middle school graduate like you, Treat.
While saying this, she brought us a gift, but it was clear that there's nothing in it for me. Furthermore, she insisted that she could only drink tea of a particular high-end brand, making me go out of my way to buy that brand of tea for her. However, she left our house without any explanation on the way back. When John was at home, his presence helps a bit. However, when he was away, and Deborah came over, I lost my escape route. She talked non-stop about how much those with high educational backgrounds contribute to American society, while on the other hand, those with low educational backgrounds devalue society. When she finished, she left our house without leaving anything behind. I had never talked to John about what Deborah said during his absence. I didn't want to cause him any unnecessary worry or stress. Then, one day suddenly, news of Sarah's marriage came in. She had decided to marry her longtime boyfriend, and a handmade invitation was sent to our house to inform us. My relationship with Sarah had always been good and warm. She truly respected me as if I were her own sister, and we frequently spent time together shopping and enjoying delicious meals. Each time I felt how special she considered me, I wanted to cherish her as if we were real siblings. Therefore, when the invitation to her wedding arrived, I responded with heartfelt congratulations. On the day of the wedding, I headed to the venue a bit earlier than John since I had made a prior reservation for hair and makeup. At the entrance of the venue, I coincidentally ran into Deborah, who was preparing for her role as the bride's mother. Despite feeling her intense gaze on me and predicting that she must have found something displeasing about my outfit or hairstyle, I approached her.
Why is a middle school dropout like you even here at such an event?
She spat out these words loudly enough for the other guests at the venue to hear. She seemed intent on condemning me by highlighting my educational background, despite it being a day of celebration.
Our family has a long history, and everyone boasts a high level of education. You are the only middle school dropout. How can you even sit in such a place? My daughter doesn't truly respect you from her heart, you know. Actually, we didn't want to invite you.
After saying that, she looked at the corsage I was wearing and commented.
Did you really need to wear that corsage that is really out of date?
It was as if she was questioning my sense of style. Without warning, Deborah forcefully removed the special corsage from my chest, threw it on the ground, and trampled on it. It was a heartfelt gift, specially chosen and purchased by John for me. Feeling as if my heart was being torn apart, I turned away from Deborah's eyes, opened the door to the venue, and ran outside. Out of breath, I realized that I had run quite a distance and my heels were almost slipping off. I found a bench in a nearby park and decided to sit down and calm myself. Taking out my cell phone, I looked through past messages and photos from the days I had spent with Sarah, reaffirming that she was sincere in her words and actions. I felt ashamed for letting Deborah's words affect me, even for a moment, and doubting Sarah, I decided to choose the path back to the venue to celebrate her happiness. However, upon returning to the venue,
I'm surprised. I can't believe you actually came back. Don't you understand that a middle school dropout like you doesn't belong here?
I saw Deborah kicking the chair with my name on it with all her might. While most of the guests were already gathered, her behavior caused many to wear expressions of surprise. However, I took a deep breath, calmed my heart, headed to the seat on Richard's family side, and sat down gracefully.
I'm astonished. You really have no common sense. You're showing the limits of a middle school dropout.
While she continued to throw sarcastic remarks, her boisterous laughter disrupted the atmosphere of the venue. The groom, Richard, turned pale with a mix of shock and confusion, hastily made his way to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, this person here is the representative of a very important business partner to us. I personally invited her for this special day.
He declared this loudly and clearly to the venue. Returning to my story, until the end of middle school, I was seriously considering advancing to high school. However, my parents' expectations had a significant influence on this decision, as they believed, in today's society, it would be better to at least graduate from high school. It wasn't necessarily my own desire, but a choice made out of a desire to meet their expectations. Is it really right for me, who doesn't truly wish to advance, to continue on this path? By taking this spot, am I stealing the dream of someone else who genuinely wants to go to high school? As these doubts and conflicts swirled inside me, a mentor appeared who understood my troubles and offered advice.
Why not take a step back from daily life sometimes and go out to see and experience the world with your own eyes?
His words resonated deeply within me. Following his advice, I persuaded my parents and began preparing to temporarily leave the U.S. Throughout this process, my mentor provided extensive support. If you only have short-term study abroad experience, you might not to be fully exposed to the reality of local life. However, by actually experiencing a different culture even in a short term, I realized that such frameworks are extremely narrow. A new perspective grew within me, realizing that learning is not confined to school and that it's possible to learn whenever you want to. Additionally, I shifted to a new way of thinking, seeing foreign languages as something to be absorbed naturally in daily life, rather than just something to learn. Continuing to learn as part of my daily life, I came to feel a deeper joy in life and a greater sense of fulfillment in my work. That was particularly due to growing up in an environment where people were not judged based on superficial factors such as educational background or nationality. As I reached a significant milestone in adulthood, I returned to the U.S. for a short period to fulfill my parents' wishes. However, my life thereafter became a back and forth between the U.S. and overseas. Within this lifestyle, my dreams and goals gradually became clearer, and I began to take action to realize them. Utilizing my past experiences, the knowledge I gained abroad, and the network I had built, I successfully established an American subsidiary of a foreign company. At that time, I was just 23 years old, and this happened just 5 years ago. Surprisingly, the company I founded and the company run by Sarah's husband had a significant business relationship. When we discovered this fact, our surprise was immense. Regarding the wedding invitations, Sarah was quite troubled about how to invite me, considering the position I held. She consulted with me about it. The groom's side was not informed of the delicate relationship between me and Deborah, but Sarah fully understood the situation. She anticipated that Deborah would not be able to avoid imposing her will, even at her daughter's important wedding. I completely agreed with her on this. Thus, we decided to adopt a somewhat unusual method for the invitation, coming from both sides. I thought that as long as I could smoothly sit on the groom's side, there would be no problem, but if any trouble arose, I was prepared to fight back using whatever means necessary. We approached the wedding ceremony with strong determination. Sarah and I had decided in our hearts to strike back at the education-obsessed mother. As the event unfolded according to our plan, the results exceeded even our imaginations. Deborah, red in the face with anger, shouted at us.
What kind of impact are you trying to have on their company?
Her anger surprised the groom's side, causing relatives and business associates to gather in a tumultuous crowd. I responded calmly, taking a deep breath. I understand that you do not like my presence. I was considering ending our relationship here to ease her discomfort. Deborah provocatively raised the corners of her mouth and said,
Finally accepting reality, are we? Then, I think you should also distance yourself from my son immediately.
I, narrowing her eyes, earnestly said, That is one option. However, if we decide to end our relationship, please be aware that it will also sever ties with him as the fiancé of your daughter and with his company. Deborah did not look surprised and even seemed to be making light of the situation. However, Richard and his family were shocked and pale. Around me, voices rose seeking apologies and solutions, while others called Deborah to account for her responsibility. Witnessing the whole incident and knowing Deborah's behavior, Sarah couldn't suppress her intense anger. Her face turned red with rage, and her tone of voice rose.
I was sick of your education-first mentality. But I never thought you wouldn't even understand the basic structure and movement of business. With such a high level of education and yet worthless in the actual field of work, you are just a burden to society.
Taking a deep breath, Sarah continued to speak to Deborah.
Losing major clients or business partners is a big deal that can determine the fate of a company. Richard carries the fate and families of hundreds of employees working in that company on his shoulders. It's unthinkable to make their future unstable with just one word from you.
Then, letting out all the stress and frustration she had accumulated, Sarah continued.
Just being near you makes my happy feelings disappear instantly. So, never appear in front of me again. I will not remember you as a mother.
My husband, John, continued speaking calmly, undisturbed by the many eyes on him at the scene.
I have no intention of ending my relationship with my wife. However, I have decided to completely cut off my relationship with you.
And with that, he strongly rejected Deborah's presence.
You are completely unnecessary at this blessed event. Please get out from here.
After the commotion, Sarah's wedding ceremony and reception proceeded as planned and were successfully concluded. Despite this unexpected event, the ceremony was very touching, and the guests in attendance were able to wholeheartedly celebrate their happiness. As a newly married couple, Sarah and Richard couldn't immediately go on their honeymoon due to work commitments and planned to do so at a later date. However, they had no intention of neglecting the serious issues with Deborah. They involved a legal expert, an attorney, and proceeded with the formalities to clearly communicate their intention to sever ties with Deborah. Surprisingly, due to Deborah's past actions, there were relatives of Richard who were considering legal action. They perceived the fact that Deborah's rash statement could potentially cause significant damage to Richard's business as a serious risk. We, as a couple, also communicated our intention to sever ties with Deborah in writing and further notified her through our lawyer not to approach us or make unnecessary contact. Despite this, the business relationship with Richard remained stable as before. However, amidst all this, Deborah suddenly appeared, attempting to rebuild the relationship with her daughter. Her inappropriate actions even extended to Richard's workplace, resulting in her being removed by security guards. Nevertheless, Deborah's brazen attitude did not stop, leading to police intervention. Meanwhile, my father-in-law, Stephen, seemed to be considering some kind of response. After Sarah's wedding, he proceeded with divorce proceedings. While Deborah was temporarily away from home, he prepared everything, announced the divorce upon her return, and instructed her to leave the house with a certain amount of money. In fact, Stephen had been tolerating Deborah's unsettling behavior all along, and he saw Sarah's wedding as an opportunity to settle things with her. He may have harbored a glimmer of hope regarding past events, but witnessing his children's cold attitude towards Deborah, he drew the final line in his heart. When he confided his feelings to Deborah, he felt that he had reached his limit of patience. The funds Stephen gave to Deborah could be seen as his last act of mercy. However, Deborah did not receive any warmth from it and quickly exhausted the funds. Although she certainly had a high level of education, she did not seem to fully understand the actual costs of living as a woman on her own. As a result, her savings soon depleted, and she is now living alone in an old poor house far removed from her former glory. Time passed, and both Sarah and I welcomed the joy of new families. Touched by the comfort of our living area and the support of welfare services, Sarah chose to live nearby. This deepened the relationship between our two families, binding us together with a stronger bond than before. We wish for our children to grow up in an open and healthy environment, and we sincerely hope they become adults capable of treating people of all circumstances fairly. With these wishes in mind, we feel that as long as our children are healthy above all, that is enough. And Stephen, with his unwavering kindness, occasionally visits our homes to check on us. Since the formation of our new families, we have been living a fulfilling daily life that truly deserves the word happiness.